Sterling, Brooke Lewis, and the team at Pinnacle Press for donating the printing for tonight's materials. They gave us these awesome materials. I mean, that's a big deal. You know, when you're doing things in the nonprofit world and somebody says they'll even do the printing for you. Anybody been there? Anybody ever been there? They're here. Anybody been there? You're like, somebody says, we'll print something for you. You're like, thank you. You're a lifesaver, right? Okay, so they did that for us tonight. So we want to thank Pinnacle Press. If you get a chance to support Pinnacle Press and you say, I'm looking for somebody to print something, now everybody in the room don't go to them and say, I need something for free.
Not for free.
All right, don't do that. You be like, I heard y'all do free stuff. Don't do that, okay? Go to them and say, I want to pay you because I heard that you donate things and you've helped others, and I got a few dollars in my budget, or I wrote you into my grant, and I want to support you because I heard when people don't have it, you've been there to support others and you've done some good work. So that's how the circle works, right? That's how the cycle works. When we have it, we support those who support us when we need it. So shout out to Pinnacle Press.
Absolutely. So if you look up here, we are joined by Miss Lori Moline herself. She is the Executive Director of Mentor Stark and one of our sponsors at Lucas Live Media. Lori brought us this idea for tonight, and when she came into the studio, everybody in there was 100% ready to go for this event tonight. We're all in, and there was no way we could turn this down.
Now let's paint the picture, okay? So I don't know if y'all know. All right, at Lucas Live Studios, okay, first of all, we be in there chilling. I mean, we work hard. We work hard. But people got blankets on, slippers, house shoes. People be laying around. So Lori came. Everybody got themselves together, tried to look professional. And she was like, sit down, put your house shoes back on, right? And we were just hanging out. And some people know Ron. He been there. Some of y'all been there. Some of y'all know what it's like there, right? So we got comfortable. And we're all just sitting there having a conversation. I'm not even sure that we were particularly talking about this moment. We were just talking about stuff going on with mentoring. And we're like, a lot of us are out here trying to do it. We're trying to do it. She's doing it. All of you here are trying to do it. And we're like, we don't even necessarily always know what's best. We were talking about the fact that sometimes, we were talking about corporal punishment, I think I was talking about. And I was like, my parents used to whoop me. They used to whoop me. And I was like, but I didn't whoop my kids the way my parents whooped me. And then I was like, and my parents didn't whoop me the way their parents whooped them. Because my parents said their parents used to grab whatever was close to them. They would whoop them with hangers, and they said race car tracks. I was like, what's a race car track? They said they would whoop them with everything, right? And I was like, my parents used like fly swatters and slippers and
switch.
Black combs, only black combs. Black combs hurt worse, right? And certain things. But my kids, I was taught you only use an open hand to the bottom because we were progressive, right? And now people are taught to this, you don't touch your kids, right? And whatever people think, right? We talked about some of those things. And we started saying, as mentors, as leaders, what is right? And I started saying, sometimes I think you got to snatch your kids up and get them together. And we just started having these conversations about, well, what happens when you're working in the community? Because I worked at McKinley Early Childhood Center for 16 years. I started at 16 years old, and for 16 years, I worked in an early childhood center. That's how I met the lovely Danny right here. I hired her once upon a time. Yep. And I became administrator and executive director, and I worked there for many years. And I remember I could not put my hands on those kids. Those were somebody else's kids. But you better believe I got them kids together. Y'all ever know how to put your teeth together and be like, you better get over here and sit down before you, they be like, I'm telling my mom. I'm like, I wish you would tell your mom, right? So, but we were talking about, well, what is best? I don't know. If I put my hands on a child, does that teach them violence? Well, there's some research out there. But we don't always know the research. We don't always hear things. We often do what was done to us. And then we had some even more complicated discussions about being black in America, to be honest. I talked about that, and I said, you know what, I wonder, and this is just going a little deeper because we had this conversation. I said, I wonder if we were beat because we were beat. I said, I wonder if we were beat because our ancestors were beat, and they were taught to be controlled by being whooped. And then when they got free, they thought the only way to control their children was to whoop them because that's how they were controlled. And what if that was passed down? And you know what? It was. And then there's research that shows that we haven't necessarily done all the right things for our children. And maybe, yes, they did get it together. But maybe that wasn't the best practice. And then when the police whoop them, though, we're mad at that. But we think whooping works. But then it doesn't work if the police do. I don't know. But tonight we want to have some conversations. Tonight we want to talk about some difficult things. Tonight we might talk about some stuff that makes you uncomfortable. But we got to be willing to get uncomfortable to make our children comfortable. Do you guys agree? Clap if you guys agree. We're willing to be uncomfortable to make sure our kids are comfortable, and we're going to have some complicated conversations tonight. We have a wonderful panel of guests who are going to be talking about some important things tonight. Yes. All right, Lori has some things she's going to share with us here tonight.
All right, well, I don't even know how to follow that up, but I'm so grateful to everybody for coming out here. This really is a really exciting evening for me because I am a research nerd, and so I've been involved in the mentoring world for about 14 or 15 years, and the growth in the amount of developmental research that we understand about building relationships with young people has been incredible. And so I'm just really excited to be able to partner with this team here, to be able to start sharing with you what's out there. And some of this stuff is, things are coming down the pike. I know we have Liza out there that's also a research nerd with me. So much exciting things that can really help us be more intentional in the way we build relationships with young people in our lives, whether they're young people within our families or young people that we meet through schools or church or neighborhoods. If we can be a more intentional, relationship-rich community, the research shows that young people will thrive. So first of all, if I can find out how many mentoring program leaders do we have in the room? If you can raise your hand up. Okay, perfect. Or aspiring mentor program leaders. I want to point out this resource to you. So Mentor National, which is an organization out of Boston that's been around for about 20 years, that's really the leading thought leader when it comes to mentoring, has just come out with the 5th edition of the Elements of Effective Practice for Mentoring. And this document and this tool on their website provides so much information that can help you understand the best practices you are already doing in your programs, ways that you can measure your results, and things you can strive to achieve. So I highly encourage you, and what's beautiful about this is the terminology of mentoring has broadened quite a bit since I first got involved in this field. So it used to be the big brother, big sister kind of mentoring, one-on-one mentoring. For me, I was becoming a mentor about 13 years ago and just kind of tripped into it, and I was playing a lot of different roles in a lot of different lives, and so it wasn't really fitting into how mentoring was described. Well, now the research is showing that what I was experiencing is actually what really happens in young people's lives, and so we're going to go ahead and get into that web of support, and I think we'll bring another guest up, right?
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So we would like to invite Joanna James up. Joanna is the Executive Director of Project Rebuild, and tonight she's going to join us and kind of break that down for us a little bit.
Let's give a hand for Joanna coming to the stage. Welcome, welcome. You can come on
So
in
I
here.
asked Joanna
Yes.
to come up here, so I'm going to explain to you this concept, which was really life-shattering for me when this research came out in 2017. Because as I said, I'd been involved in mentoring for about 13 years, and one of the young men that was supposed to be here tonight and unfortunately is sick is Isaiah Smith. And I met Isaiah when he was 15 years old, on the 5th floor of this room. He is now working for us as an opportunity guide, doing the same kind of web of support expansion that I did with his class. So it really speaks to the power of having young people having young people that are part of our programs. They end up becoming the future mentors in our community. So the idea behind this web of support model, and this is research that came out of America's Promise Alliance. When I said that one-on-one mentoring was not really the model that I was experiencing, we realize is young people exist in an ecosystem, right? They exist in an ecosystem of their families. They exist in an ecosystem of people in their schools. They exist in an ecosystem of people in the churches. When we have a better understanding of what that ecosystem is, we can have a better understanding of how we can help them thrive. The more filled out this ecosystem is, the better. And the other part of it is, so for me as a mentor, I was playing all these different roles in the different lives of the young people I worked with. And a lot of times it was because what was going on in this other ecosystem. So this is called their bonding social capital. So this is kind of the world that they're in all the time, right? So this is their family, this is their school. These are the connections that they have naturally in their lives. It's very important for us to be paying attention who's in that bonding social capital. A lot of times we're not activating those relationships. So if a young person wants to be a nurse and they have an aunt that is a nurse, we need to actually be saying, hey, Aunt Susie, can I go job shadow with you? So part of what we do is try to really activate that bonding social capital, try to understand who's already in that young person's web of support. And if you are in that web of support, or you are part of that bonding social capital, how can you be more intentional about the relationships you build? And that's what we're really going to dig into tonight. The yellow thing is what we call the bridging social capital. So that's people that we get introduced into the lives of our young people that they wouldn't normally be in circles. So I know Dolores does this, and She Elevates, right? She's bringing in CEOs from companies that are from all over the world in her Confidence Club. So she's bridging these students over to people that they wouldn't normally be connected to, and that's part of what we do to expand possibilities, and we'll get into that a little bit. So within that web of support, we're talking about having 5 different kinds of support. So there's emotional support. Do I have somebody I can talk to? Just, to the point of that statistic we talked about. Instrumental support, and this is really important, and I find as a mentor, this is something that I have to do a lot. So it's everything from, I want to get a job, I don't have transportation to get there. I need to do this, I don't have a computer. Instrumental support within the web is very, very important. You can provide all the emotional support you can, but if somebody doesn't actually have access to the practical, tangible things that they need to be able to go after their goals, it can get in the way. And so it's important for our community to understand that, our community to provide those resources if the families can't do that. Informational support, so that's like opening up, the FAFSA's opening up. This college is having a college visit, just general information that young people might not get exposed to as part of their normal things that they do in the day. Companion support. Companionship support. This is that idea of, and Lamar does this, right? So taking kids places to experience new things, having somebody else to go with. He takes his kids to Kennywood. Those kids would never have a chance to go to Kennywood if they weren't doing it through Lamar's program. Patty does this all the time with Hannah's house. So it's that idea of just having somebody else to go with. Fishing, walking with the purses, taking their kids fishing. It's that idea of having somebody else to go with to try and have new experiences. And finally, this validation support. Normalizing what kids are going through and helping them understand that these feelings and the things that they experience and the obstacles that they, hit and all that kind of stuff are things that other people experience. That, that if they feel frustrated, it's okay, and you're providing that validation to them. So when we measure that web of support, what we're really looking at is how many relationships are in it. What's the quality of those relationships? So do I feel like I can talk to Mr. Terrence about something that I'm going through right now? What's the structure of the network around there? I know Lamar and I have worked, I don't think Miracle's here, but when Miracle was walking 5 miles to get to work, right? I called you up, could we get her a bike, right? That structure of that network, and we've both stayed very connected to Miracle. And finally, that person's ability to mobilize the relationship, and this is really, really important because I had a kid today and I'm trying to help him get into like the medical thing. Having to help him understand, how do you make yourself a doctor's appointment? What do you say if you're experiencing mental health issues? How do you explain that in a way that you're comfortable about it? How do you access the Youth Navigator Network here? So teaching the kids the skills and the words to be able to access relationships is really, really important. So this is your turn.
All right, great. Great information, and we hope you guys are holding on to those things. I know sometimes when we're listening to things like that, we're like, yeah, I heard a part of that. Let's make sure we're at least holding on to something. Take some notes, note takers, and you have these things in your notepad. I love the part you talked about those. Was it instrumental? What was the part you said?
Instrumental support.
Instrumental.
It's very tangible support.
Yeah, so it's really nice. I used to think of this, like, I remember being in church and people would say, I'll pray for you. And I'd be like, but I'm hungry. Could you give me a sandwich? No, but I'll pray for you. I'd be like, but I need a sandwich, right? So, like, sometimes they need a sandwich. Sometimes they need a computer. Sometimes they need a bike. Sometimes they need a thing. So sometimes the tangible support is giving them the thing they actually need, and that's a part of that web of support. So keeping those things in mind are very important. So, Joanna, talk to us a little bit about Project Rebuild. Talk to us about the program overall.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm on.
Nope, that's okay. It took a nap. It takes naps sometimes. It's probably, there you go.
So can you hear me? Perfect. I can hear myself. So thank you to Lucas, Danny, Lori for having us up here and letting us talk a little bit about Project Rebuild. For those that aren't familiar with our organization, we have spent the past 25 years empowering young people in Stark County through education, vocational training, leadership development, youth development. Probably most people are familiar with our flagship program, which is our Youth Build Greater Stark County. You probably know the 9-month program, but you don't know the name because it's somewhat new. But that 9-month program is a really holistic, very kind of well-rounded approach to serving young people. Ideally, our goal is to do everything we can within those 9 months to set our young people up for success after they leave us. And that's going to be in the workplace, it could be in post-secondary education, in their families, in their communities, all of those good things. So Lori talked about the web of support, and she asked me to kind of speak a little bit about how it looks, what it looks like at Rebuild. So when we talk about that emotional support, I think you hit the nail on the head, creating that safe space where young people are vulnerable, they can be vulnerable, and they can share, and they know that they're not going to be judged, and they know that there aren't going to be consequences, and that's just going to encourage more and more of that sharing. So I think in our organization, that culture of just being welcoming and loving and supportive and all that type of stuff, it doesn't look like that every day. Let's be real. We're working with young people, and sometimes it's a little frustrating, but that's the culture that we try to create. When we talk about instrumental support, again, strong case management in our program, making sure that we have a full-time case manager on staff that gets to know all of our young people, gets to know every aspect of their lives. We joke sometimes that we get all up in their business because we know every part of what's going on in their life, whether they want to share or not. And then our job really is to make sure that we can connect them to those resources we have, or those resources that are available. So, did I take a nap again?
It'll take hers. And we'll
Can you hear this?
Yeah. So then I think as program leaders and mentors and those types of things, it's also really important for us to know where those resources are. So we've got an incredible support system of youth leaders and people that run fabulous programs and work with young people every day, and they're connected. So I may not know how to get everything, and I may not have the resources to provide everything, but I can tell you that I'm going to make some phone calls, or I'm going to send some emails, and I'm going to figure out how to get those for my young people. Informational support, I love this, and this is something that I think Project Rebuild does, and we're really intentional about, making sure that our young people know what exists. A lot of times, and for those that don't know, I'm working with 16 to 24-year-olds. Most of our young people are facing barriers to the workplace, is kind of what they refer to that. So I might be working with some people that are somewhat sheltered. They haven't really been out of Stark County. They haven't sometimes even been out of Canton. Their world is about as far as STARTA will take them. So for us to be able to, similar to Lamar, kind of show them what's out there, what exists, what those possibilities are, and then the second step of that is also to put them in those spaces, making sure that they have the opportunity to go visit those places, they feel comfortable there, they can see it, they can smell it, they can hear it. And for Rebuild, this looks like monthly employer tours where we physically go to employers and take tours and talk about the careers that are available there. But more often than not, my young people will come back and say, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, great, we're going to check that off the list, and we don't have to pursue that opportunity anymore, so we're going to look for some others. So I think that's one of the things that kind of we love about our program. That companionship support, kind of along that same line of informational support, getting them out of what's normal for them, getting them out of their daily normal. Our program is based on relationships and trust, and sometimes you have to make opportunities for those relationships and trust to build, and sometimes that just looks like fun. So we build out a year-long calendar, and at least 3 to 4 times a year, we have 4 days on our calendar, or we have 4 days a month that is just literally, we're going to go to the park, we're going to barbecue, we're going to cook out, we're going to play some games. You can see us at parks on a pretty regular basis. If you follow our social media, sometimes it looks like we're having a little more fun than we are like working on our high school diploma.
That's what I was thinking.
That's the fun part.
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
They're not at school.
And then I think that validation support, I think sometimes that's going to come from us as mentors, it's going to come from us as staff, it's going to come from us as leaders. Our program is a little different in the fact that it is very intimate. So at the most, we're dealing with about 25 to 30 young people at a time. They come through in classes of cohorts, which are about 10 to 12. So they start to kind of create that peer group. They start to support each other. They start to validate each other. They hear each other's stories. The other thing about our program is we have young people a minimum of 16 hours a week, and sometimes we have young people that are with us for up to 30 hours a week. So again, there's a lot of opportunity for validation, story sharing, all that kind of stuff, and it's really important for them to know that they are not kind of on this island, they are not that oddball, they're not that outlier that maybe in other programs they were.
Joanna, wonderful job. Let's give her a hand. Project Rebuild, you guys now know. She'll stick around afterwards if you guys have any questions. Did you have another?
Okay, good. Thank you so much.
She has more information. If you want to see her afterwards, she has more information. She's willing to share. Thank you so much, Joanna. And at this time, we want to welcome Patty Hostetler to the stage. Let's give her a hand.
Yes.
So while Patty's coming up here, in your packets, you actually have
Hi, how are you?
an at-home activity that you can do about how to initiate discussions about webs of support with the young people in your life, to hear who they feel like is part of that support system. So that is in your packet right now. Hi, Patty.
All right, so, well, Miss Patty, now Miss Lori is so good at this. She gave me all of this to say, but then she said it, and then everybody came up, so I was over here like, what do you want me to do? So we're gonna get right into the questions. So thank you for joining us tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about the work you do at Hannah's House?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a mentoring agency. We work with at-risk teen girls from 6th to 12th grade, and we actually do preventative work too. We want to be about prevention, right? Awesome. And so we have a Power Over Predators class that all the girls that get referred to, we're referral based. All the girls that are referred to us go through this program, and it's really putting a defense around them, giving the knowledge that they need. We live in a world of technology, and we want to keep them safe from predators, how not to fall into their traps. We talk about sextortion and human trafficking. So they go through that program first, and then we start a mentoring program with them.
Really quick, sextortion. Raise your hand if you know what sextortion is. Okay, good. Some people do. It was a big word, so I just want you to tell me real quick. If you could just real quick, just in case we don't know, sextortion.
Yeah. So it's the fastest growing threat against our teenagers. So we need to know what it is, right? So a young person might send a sext. That's a nude image or a video through technology of some sort. And then it gets into the wrong hands. It might be another student who then passes it around because they say, give me more, or I'm gonna expose you. I'm gonna send this to your friends. I'm gonna put it on your social media. So it could be a peer that does this. But there are predators out there who are doing this. And when they target boys, it's usually for money. And we are losing young people to suicide because they try to handle this on their own, right? The last person that they want to tell that they did something like this to is their parents. That's why we need safe adults.
Right.
in
That
this community.
25%, that 1 in 4 children that don't feel they have somebody to talk to about what they're going through, imagine they made a mistake like that.
Yeah.
And now who do you open up to say I did something so foolish?
Exactly.
And now that other person has all that power over you to say,
Yeah.
if you don't send me more or give me money,
Yep.
I'm going to share it with more people, or even tell your parents, your principals. You could get suspended, you could lose your job, all kinds of things could
kinds of
happen,
things, yep.
and they don't know what to do about
Yeah.
it. And are we the safe people that they can come to and say, I can't even tell my parents who love me, but I can tell you, Mr. Terrence, because you've been that person for me at school every day who you just feel safe to me, and I just got to tell you, and I believe you can help me and get me through this. That's who we want to be.
Absolutely.
That was great. That was
Yeah,
great. Yes.
absolutely. Yep.
So you share a lot of things about Hannah's House on social media, and you often refer to developmental assets. Okay. So can you tell us and help us better understand what developmental assets is all about?
Yeah. This is hard for me to do this in 10 minutes because I get so excited about
So
this.
much.
Okay, so Search Institute has studied more than 5 million American adolescents over the years. And what they have found, based on 20 positive supports, so external assets, and then 20 positive strengths, which are internal assets. So there's 40 of them. They took some risk factors into consideration when making this list. But what they have found in their studies, that young people who have 30 or more of these assets are doing well. They're doing well in school, in their community, at home. They're engaging in positive behaviors. But on the flip side of that, those who don't have 30 or more, and the less amount they have, the more likely they are engaging in the high-risk behaviors, and they're not doing so well in school and in their community and at home. So to me, this is exciting because if we can build their assets, things like helping them have a higher self-esteem, right? Helping them to have a positive outlook of their future. Being one more caring adult is an asset in their life. Helping them to serve and think outside of themselves. These are things that we can do on a daily with our young people.
Love that. Okay, so how do you recommend people use the framework to be more intentional about building these assets in their lives of the young people naturally in their lives?
So, you know, we have so many opportunities every day that we come into contact with young people. We don't even have to know them, right? That young person who is serving us at the drive-thru, and even if they mess up our order,
that's a
right?
good point.
You know, we can encourage
Not just
them.
at Chick-fil-A, because they're really
No,
nice there.
they
It's
are-
easy at
yeah,
Chick-fil-A,
it's
because they're
so
like, my
easy there.
pleasure.
Yeah, you
But
just- yeah.
At Taco Bell, when they're throwing the thing at you, you still got to be nice to them?
Yeah.
Okay,
You know,
all right,
you
that's
have
different.
to be able
That's
to,
different.
you know, hey, I really appreciate that you're working this cold window, so I don't have to go in. So I'll wait for my order,
Right.
you know, to get it right or whatever.
Right.
But so every encounter we have with people, we are either withdrawing or depositing in their
Wow.
life. And just like your bank account, right? If you withdraw, you're going to be left empty.
Yeah.
And it's the same with people. We need to deposit. Learn their names. If they hold the door open for you in the community, thank them.
Yeah.
You know, let them know how much you appreciate that. So it might be a niece or a nephew that just needs a little bit more time. You go shopping all the time, take them with you. You know, let them see something different in you that then they can carry on.
That. All right, let's pivot a little bit, all right? So you work with a lot of young women who have something called trauma. Can you talk to us a little about trauma and ACEs in these young women's lives?
So ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. And if a young person has any of these traumatic experiences by the time they're 17, it can profoundly affect their mental health, their physical well-being. And so that then affects their learning, it affects their behaviors. And so what I teach our mentors is we don't have to be experts on trauma. If we can just have a small understanding and believe the research that trauma affects brain development in young people. And if we can just see young people through that lens, we're not going to so easily drop that string of connection. We're going to stay connected to them even though they have those behaviors. We're going to stay connected. And that connection can bring about lasting impact in a young person. Relationships, healthy relationships heals trauma.
Absolutely.
That's important, and it's interesting because there are children who are dealing with adverse childhood experience. They're dealing with ACEs every day. Some children go home from school, and every day they're dealing with alcoholism, drug use, abuse at home every day. And every day they come back to school and they're dealing with things. And you're saying, why are you asleep in my class? Or what's going on? Or they're coming to our programs and we're saying, are you serious about this program? Do you know what we're doing to put these programs on and how much we're sacrificing and all these things? Not realizing they're dealing with so much more. I learned a term once upon a time. I used to do foster parent training. We talked about ACEs. And I used to think everybody needs to go through these trainings, not just people who are preparing to be foster parents. I was a parent not knowing these things, and I needed to know them. And we talked about something called the invisible suitcase. And we talked about children were coming into foster homes, not just with the bags that they were carrying, but the bags that they were carrying, right? And they were carrying so much more baggage that you couldn't see. And oftentimes, for all of us in this room who are working with young people, you can't see those bags. They got their book bag on when they come into your program, but they got bigger baggage and bigger things that they're carrying. So we have to care for those things. We have to help them take that bag off their back. And we have to help them and listen to them and understand them and not be so quick to judge them. And guess what? Some of us still have those bags on our backs. Some of us are still trying to deal with the traumas and dramas and things that we went through as young people, and we're acting and reacting to some of that stuff. So the things that you guys are doing at Hannah's House, you know I'm a fan. I'm a big fan.
You know what? I just want to add something to the whole ACEs thing on the flip side of it, because we hear about ACEs all the time, but there's also research called positive childhood experiences,
That's wonderful.
PCEs,
That's
right?
wonderful.
And what that research shows is that adults who had a high score of ACEs but still had positive childhood experiences, it lessened their odds to have mental health issues when they became adults. And so this is what we get to do, right?
Yes.
We get to have positive childhood experiences with our kiddos, giving them community traditions to follow after, to be excited about, to give them safe space to talk about those emotions and those feelings, to be that safe, caring adult. And that's exciting.
Love that.
Is that
Love
exciting?
that.
It is. I love that. I'm just, my brain is over here just thinking about my web of supports and the things that you guys are talking about. And it sounds so cliche to say, like, your coach could be your web of support or your counselor or you're this or you're that. But in my case, it really was. My cheerleading coach, if it wasn't for her, I don't know where I would be. If it wasn't for my counselor at McKinley, I don't know where I would be. The people at my school are the ones that carried me and made sure I went to college, made sure I knew what my FAFSA, just those things that you would think everybody would just know, right?
Yeah.
And my mom, that was her first time filling out a FAFSA at McKinley with me, coming to be part of my web of support. So all of this stuff is so important, and it is the people like us in the community that can sometimes give our kids that extra push, because I was that kid that got that extra push from the people in my community. So this is really important. I just wanted to add that part
I think that's
to it.
important too, because Canton City School graduates.
Absolutely, yeah.
My father was in prison when I was in middle school. We were homeless for a moment. Tremendous adverse childhood experiences. My mom drank a lot. Like, we went through a lot of stuff. You went through a lot of stuff. And people see us now and they're like, oh, everything looks like me. They look so happy. Life was rough. But we had some good people in our lives too. I can remember junior achievement and the different programs that are still going on, and people came into our schools, and I remember staring at those people like, wow. People like you guys, there was programs that happened in the community, and I clung to every one of them and every person that came into our classroom. I remember those teachers at Hartford and those teachers at McKinley and those people in the community. They changed my life. They changed my life.
I got one for y'all. Remember Kids Summit? Mm-hmm. Miss Vicky, that's where I come from, Kids Summit, and it was in all the schools, all the elementary schools. But those programs helped us so much, because I remember walking in the parade and doing those chants and just being around good people like that. So
those positive
Patty,
things
thank
matter.
You so
thank you
much
so
for
much.
listening. If you guys want to learn any more about trauma-informed relationships with the youth, the Stark County Health Department actually has an upcoming training on trauma called Building Resiliency in Youth. And the information for that is in your folders. But Patty, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's give Patty a hand. Thank you so much.
So that information is actually on the back table. They already have these pre-scheduled training dates. Kelly Potke is here from the health department, so if you have any questions, they can also come in and do personalized training for your mentoring programs. So make sure you connect with Kelly if you want to have more of that trauma-informed work. So I'm going to get off the stage.
All
now.
right.
I'm just so excited about the
Can we give it up for Miss Lori one more time?
Miss Lori, thank you so much. Thank you. Mentor Stark, you guys.
I want to bring up Jen Warner, Executive Director of Legacy Project of Stark, and Dolores Presley, the CEO of She Elevates. You guys want to give them a round of
Let's
applause?
give them a hand as they come on up.
Welcome, ladies. Welcome.
There you are. Hello, hello.
We have working microphones.
We think.
Hi, Miss Dolores. How are you?
Hello.
I know Miss Dolores in real life, y'all. So
In real life, right?
in real life.
I know her in real life. We know her in real life.
Real life. This is
Hey,
fake
this is
life.
real
Y'all, this
life.
is fake news.
Yes.
Y'all don't
Right. Okay. So as the Search Institute continued studying development assets, it began to see a framework emerge when they looked at the relationships young people had in their lives. They identified these positive, healthy relationships as developmental relationships. Their research showed that the strong developmental relationships suggest stronger outcomes regarding developmental assets, social emotional competencies, and character strengths.
A little info for you guys. So, Miss Jen, can you tell everyone about the work that you do at Legacy Project?
Sure.
Uh-oh.
I'm really loud. Maybe you don't want me to have a mic. All right. So my name's Jen Warner. I am with the wonderful Legacy Project of Stark. And what we are really passionate about is actually mobilizing communities to form these life-changing relationships with local kids. And so what I'm 150 positive adults in Stark County right now that go into local schools during the school day and meet with students. We also have community-based programs that are after school, that are on the weekends or after school. But our ambition is really that we would awake Stark County to find these opportunities to invest in local kids. And so what makes our program unique is all of the programs that we're doing, it is local people loving on their local kids. And so our mentors are people who grew up in that area, who work in that area, who went to those schools, you know, and as they're working with the students, they're able to share life experience of, hey, I know what it's like to be a student in Canton. I was a student in Canton. You know, sharing those moments and saying, I get it, you know. One of the things I always like to point out, and raise your hand if you're leading a mentoring program right now. Okay, so you guys know this, but Search Institute, who Patty just spoke about, they put out this quote a couple years ago, and it's my favorite quote probably ever. But it says, after decades of research and countless surveys, tons of data that they collected, relationships have the single greatest impact on a kid. Now, if you're leading a mentoring program, you know that already, right? Like, our relationships, these positive moments, even thinking about our own lives, we know that, like, what played a part. I'm looking at Laura right now. Laura, who is now volunteering with Walking with a Purpose. She was one of my mentors when I was a crazy 18-year-old right out of high school, you know, and she was like that person in my life that believed in me and always challenged me and pointed out all the crazy things that I believed that weren't true. And sometimes that's what people need. But out of all these millions of dollars that Search Institute spent to tell us that relationships matter, they determined after that essentially not all relationships are the same. And we know that, right? We know that in our gut. We can think of people in our lives that, hey, maybe I go to them for this. Maybe I go to them for that. And that, at the end of the day, is what Lori's talking about with these webs of support. It can't be, legacy can't be Jen Warner really likes kids. Right? We have to figure out how to find people in our local communities that are going to care about these kids, that are going to love about these kids. At the end of the day, I hope kids connect to She Elevates and Walking with a Purpose and Mentor Stark. I want these kids in every positive thing that we can offer in this community. We want to work together. We all like each other, right? Like, it's like a family reunion when we get to do this kind of stuff. And we just appreciate everything that's going on in this community. We appreciate everybody for making the time to come out here.
I love it.
Yeah.
She said we brought the Avengers together. Give yourselves a hand
We did.
tonight.
The superheroes
Give
are out
yourselves a
in
hand
full
tonight.
effect.
We brought the Avengers together tonight. When you think about your program, when you think about youth relationships and the mentor relationship, what do you guys do to make it intentionally developmental?
Yeah, so what a developmental relationship is, I think there's a slide, there it is. So what Search determined is essentially what makes a relationship developmental is that we are focused on these 5 areas, right? So it's not we just get together and play basketball and show each other TikToks, right? That probably isn't gonna have the impact to change your entire course of action. So what we look for in our mentors, what we try to equip our mentors to be able to do is really focus on 5 areas. This express care, right? And so do kids know that are in your life, in your communities, do they know that you care about them, right? That's very basic, but sometimes as adults what we do is we care about the person that they're gonna be 10 years from now, right? We wanna give you the skills to be that person that in 10 years you can do this. Do the kids in your world know that right now, if nothing else changes about their behavior, about who they are, about what they believe, do they know that you care at the end of the day, right? Because if you don't have that, you can't do the rest of it. The challenging growth, have you ever tried to challenge growth in a kid that doesn't know if you like them? It's not gonna work, right? Provide support, right? So exactly what Lori and Patty were talking about. If a kid doesn't know how to fill out a FAFSA, our mentors can help walk them through that. Or we can connect you to somebody that knows how to do it, right? Sharing power, right? Actually treating them with respect and giving them a choice in what you're doing. So you don't just show up and here's what we're doing with you today. We want to hear what you want to talk about. We want to hear about what mattered to you this week. You know, what are ideas you guys have for activities we can do together? And then lastly, we want to expand possibilities because at the end of the day, if it ends with us, we're failing these kids. So we want to expand possibilities. And what can they do when their time with us ends? Where can we connect them? Who can we, who would be a great person to put in their web of support, right? And so our program, we train our mentors in this. They know exactly this is what we're looking for. We give guidebooks to our mentors, which I think you have like an activity and all of that. But at the end of the day, if our mentors go into a local school or to one of our programs and what they need to do that day is provide support and not play the fun game we have lined up for that day, our mentors have the freedom to adapt and to do what they need to do for their group of kids.
I love that. Such a great point you made about liking them today, right? So often it's easy to look at the young people and say, you have so much potential. You're going to be something someday. And they're looking at you like, but what about today? You know, it's like looking at somebody and saying, you look nice today. They're like, well, what did I look like yesterday? You know, you didn't like me yesterday, right? So looking at the young person and saying, you matter today. You are self-esteem is telling them they're lovable, capable today, right? That builds their esteem, saying that they're worthy today of something. Their self-worth means they have value. When you see worth in something, you're willing to pay something. What can we pay to children? We can pay attention to these children. We can spend currency, our time with these children, right? That's what shows them that we value them. And sometimes we don't know if they go home and they're valued at home. They may not be valued at home. And that's not a knock on any parents or whatever. That doesn't matter. That's not our business. That's not our problem. Our thing is when you're with me, I want you to show that I'm willing to pay you the currency of my time. And my time is something I will never get back. I can make more money. I can't make more time. But you're worth my time. And I will spend it on you. And I will spend as much as I need to spend, as much as I can spend. I'm willing to do it for you because you matter today. Not just because I think 10 years from now you're going to be something, but I believe you're something worth my time today. Thank you so much for sharing that.
The conversations in here are amazing right now. This poor mic.
This is like a prank mic.
This is a prank.
We're gonna stop trying this prank mic.
The conversations tonight are amazing, and it's really refreshing when I look out and everybody is like so locked in on what we're talking about. Miss Dolores, I have had the pleasure of working with Dolores. I see Miss Shavers in the back. I worked with them as part of their academy and director of education, and I was able to be with some of the girls that she works with. And when I tell you guys the passion that Miss Dolores and Adrian has for these young girls and these kids, they were so persistent on getting one of their projects into the schools. They didn't stop until they did. And it was for these girls. It was for the girls in our community. So Miss Dolores, can you please tell us a little bit about the mission of She Elevates?
Yes, but I need to speak to, I don't know if we're working here. It was, I just banged it on the to make sure it worked. But anyway, I have to speak to, you have to care about the children. And they know if you don't. If you're being phony, they know it. They know it. So I need to tell you about She Elevates, but I need to tell you too that I was an educator. I came from Canton City Schools. Who came from Canton City Schools? All right, and then I taught in Canton City Schools for 27 years. So I'm just a 27-year Canton girl. I just love everything about Canton and Canton City Schools. But we must care. And then I was a very strict teacher. And my colleagues used to say, how can these children love you so much? You are on them. But see, that they knew I cared. Because if I didn't care, I wouldn't even be on them. And I mean, if you care, like we have our executive board. One of my 4th grade students, Jennifer Dyer, is on the executive board. She was in my 4th grade. I met her. Yeah, it's just amazing. We were in Leadership Stark County. I heard someone saying Mrs. Presley. I'm like, who calls me Mrs. Presley with adults? But anyway, the point is, she said she never forgot all the time I would say to her that you can do it, no matter what your circumstances are. And that's what we have to instill into these children. It's not your circumstances. It's not where you come from. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but the She Box. But it's just you have to show them that you care and keep pouring into them, and it works, and their lives change.
I want to say one thing. So during the summertime, I was able to be at the She Elevates Academy. And the love letters she's talking about were love letters to themselves, right? Well, at the beginning of the week, some of them didn't have anything they loved about themselves. They couldn't even tell you one thing that they loved about themselves. Maybe my hair. And I try to make them dig a little bit deeper. Like, what about your character? What do you like about yourself? Are you helpful? Are you nice? They couldn't think of anything. By the end of the week, those girls were riddling off things like, oh, I'm a good friend, I'm this, I'm that. They were so confident, they were so ready to tell somebody else what they loved about themselves. And even as an adult, sometimes it's hard to think what we love about it. What do you love about yourself? It's hard to talk about ourselves because we're as adults, parents, we're pouring into everybody else that we don't give ourselves time. And so in that moment, it was a time for me to even sit back like, well, what do I love about myself? So I was with the girls like, what do I love about me too? Because I can tell you about my son and my all these other things, but What about me? So let's also talk about, within the lens of trauma, and what we just discussed, you are often incorporating CEOs and high-level professionals as mentors for your youth. As you are creating these connections, how are you preparing both the young women and the mentors so that the relationships being set, the relationships they're being set up succeed? Sorry.
So we do a whole training with our people. We just can't help but train them because I'm a teacher. So they go through a whole training of the She Shadows program. They go through the She Elevates Life room. They were crying. They were changing their lives. And so that's what we do.
And that was a training. That was a training
Yes.
for us to learn so we can teach the others. But as we were learning, we were breaking down because the curriculum was just that good.
I just wanted to give a quick plug. So when we're talking about trauma, we're talking about adverse childhood experiences. There are a lot of free trainings available in Stark County. So one of the things that we're able to provide to every mentoring organization free of charge, we can come to you, is something called QPR training, which stands for Question, Persuade, Refer. And basically anyone who's working basically with anyone, adults it's helpful to have, but it's to recognize those signs of someone who might need support. And so that you as an individual, you know what to do to connect them to the professionals. So the same way that we do CPR, and if a doctor shows up, we're like, okay, go away, I'm gonna keep doing this myself. We would never do that. A lot of times with mentoring organizations, our role during crisis is to connect to a resource of someone who's educated to do that. And we as mentoring organizations need to be aware of who is that, how do we get people connected in the middle of a crisis and not try to take that on our own. So I have cards here I can give you, but we can schedule free trainings for your employees, your volunteers, all of that thing through the Suicide Prevention Coalition with Starkmar and Coleman and a bunch of different great organizations that actually provide that free of charge.
Awesome. You guys, before you leave, make sure you stop and speak to Ms. Dolores and Ms. Jen. Before you go, just get any literature that you got that you may need that they brought, or just any other information before you guys go. Thank you, ladies, so much.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you both. Wonderful ladies, powerful. Dolores' voice always sounds so prestigious, doesn't it?
She's been on Oprah. That's why.
She's been on Oprah. The first time I ever heard Dolores' voice, I said, I want to speak like her one day. I really was. I was a teenager. I heard her speak. I said, I'm going to be a speaker too. So she's one of my inspirations. Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Dolores, and thank you all. We now want to talk about challenging growth and developing social emotional learning skills through a trauma lens. And we have two gentlemen who are very powerful in this community. And I want to welcome to the stage Mr. Samuel Muhammad, the director of Canton's Academy of Urban Scholars, and Mr. Lamar Sharp, founder and CEO of Be a Better Me. Can we give them both a hand? Come on down, gentlemen. Come on down.
All right. How you guys doing?
Welcome,
We're
welcome.
excited to
we
have
might
you
have
here.
microphones, or you guys
Might not.
might just be yelling. I don't know
You
what's
a
going to
little
happen
like
here.
All right, so we got both of you up here. Let's see. Let's talk about how you challenged growth in the area of emotional regulation. And Lamar, we'll start with you.
Wait, you see how I'm standing?
Yeah.
Did you see how I started? I didn't want to sit down and feel short. You see what I'm saying? I'm just going to stand up. Okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit down. All right.
All right, so I'm Lamar Sharp, president of Be a Better Me Foundation. This is actually our 10th year anniversary. Yeah. So you know, as being a police officer, I grew up not liking the police. I was pretty much afraid of them, basically in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And when I came on this job, I had some really great mentors, like Mr. Boudreaux, Mr. Presley, guys who talked to me and encouraged me to never let my light dim in the police department. So as I came onto this job, I really felt the need. I was seeing a lot of trauma. I was seeing a lot of kids and people dealing with emotional problems. And it was just out of the kindness of my heart, because my mom raised me. I grew up in a church, and every Sunday and every Wednesday, Bible study days, I was in church. And so it raised me to be the person who I am today. So all of that transferred over through my job and me being a person through my job, where I started giving back to people in the community. So So that's a little bit about that. I don't know, Be a Better Me, we like to empower our youth through mentoring. We like our kids to know that they can be anything that they want to be. The last couple years have been really challenging because we've been this is the first past couple years I've been actually taking kids that have been coming directly out of DYS with felony charges, and I've been, with my staff, we've been trying to really turn them around so that they don't go back. Basically, I want to see kids thrive, and I don't want to see them in the judicial system. So I know that might sound like an oxymoron, I guess, because as a police officer, everybody's mentality is we're supposed to go out here and arrest everybody, but that's not what the mentality is. The mentality is to keep them out of the system so they can thrive to be the best that they can be. So with emotions, one of the things that we do with dealing with emotions is we want to, one, acknowledge the emotion, because once you again acknowledge it, because once you name it, you can tame it, and that's how we look at it. And then once we identify it, we want to be able to work through resolutions that we can actually fix it and deal with it, and letting kids know that it's okay to be emotional. But at the same time, we got to learn how to deal with those emotions, and then we also have to make sure that, it doesn't overwhelm us and it doesn't control us. So that's what how we do and what we work on with our youth.
That is amazing. Now, Mr. Muhammad, I did not go to Timken myself, but I heard all about you. Great things, only great things. But from working at Timken, and now you are the director of Canton's Academy Urban Scholars. Now, I know that, I could be wrong, but you are the founder of that school, am I correct?
I'm not the founder.
Okay.
I just did all the hard work.
You did all the hard work. We're pretty close. Pretty close. So, well, congratulations on that. I know that's something that you've been working on. So when we're talking about challenging growth, right? Think about both of you when you were younger, challenging growth. We might have heard things like, I expect you to do your best, or I'm trying to push you just so you can go further, or I'm holding you accountable, or I'm helping you try to reflect on these failures. And think about challenging growth. I want you to think about yourself as a young black kid in the community in general. What did challenging growth kind of like look like for you, and how are you now incorporating that into the lives of the young men and young girls that you deal with?
Okay. So one of the things that we do at the Academy for Urban Scholars, we make sure that our teachers understand human growth and development models. Teachers have to almost be de facto counselors because of the multitude and layers of trauma and damage that young people come into our classrooms or into our schools with. One of the things that we absolutely teach is that we teach a modified version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. First and foremost, teachers must understand that every young person that comes through that door is an actual miracle. Their father had a seed and their mother had an egg, and it multiplied from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, 32 to 64, 128, 256, 5,024, 2,048, up to 9 majestic systems: skeletal system, muscular system, reproductive system, cardiovascular system. Now, they enter the world and they meet maladaptive experiences. There are things that cause wrinkles in the psyche and the heart of young people, as everybody had already addressed. Now, most of the time, young people function from a place of pain, and you can't take that personal. You really cannot. Now, while you're correcting and disciplining them, they may feel like that, but that's them viewing you through the lens of the same pain that they probably experienced at another place at another time. So we help our young people to understand the miraculous nature of their own personal miracle. Then we want them to connect with what they are innately born to do. For example, you may have an acumen for art. You may have an acumen for science. You may have an acumen for, cooking. We want you to understand the pathways of progress, not from a programmatic standpoint, but from a standpoint where it's in you. So when you saw it, you wanted to be it. Now, how do you emotionally regulate to handle the vicissitudes and the rigors that come along with trying to have proper human relationships and interactions when you go into an environment that may not be friendly to you, that may not be amenable to how you look, to how you think, to how you approach life? Well, at that point, you can recoil and you can move away. You can have some other maladaptive behavior. You can cuss out everybody in the room, or you can do some soul searching, put yourself in a position to move through those waters that may or may not be adverse for you. So we teach them like models. This is another model. I'm going to give you an example. There's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Wade Nobles. Dr. Wade Noble said that every child comes out of a petri dish. So you have petri dish A and petri dish B, and there's multiple petri dishes, like we just looked at the beginning. But when you pick a child from petri dish A, they come out of culture A. You drop them in petri dish B, and when you drop them in petri dish B may be a foreign culture. It might have a foreign, it may be too hot. It might be too cold. It might not have the right vitamins. It might be acidic. So ultimately, what you're looking at is a situation where the child has to assimilate, acculturate. They may even toxify the environment. So we want our young people to clearly understand, what will your impact be when you enter culture B? And can you learn to move? Can you learn to navigate? Can you learn to emotionally regulate so that you can make it through such experience? Model after model after model after model, those were just two. But these two models allow students to explore their own psyche, their own weaknesses. We have them do SWOT analysis on themselves. You are a business, you are a brand. So we keep going through various introspective processes that our teachers must learn and that our students must incorporate in the class learning if they can receive it. And one last thing, these individuals can turn into a movement. So when we study history, we may study civil rights movement, civil rights movement, women's rights movement, workers' rights movement. But if you weave these movements together, they turn into an era. So we're trying to prepare our students to be a part of not just a movement, but an era of change, which is indicative of what we see here in this particular room. You see all of these people here moving in a similar, same place, similar space mentally, kind of weave together like braids. So it becomes like a chorus for the time period. So this could be considered a progressive era type activity where we're trying to learn how to move our young people forward in spite of it all, in spite of what we've been through. That's how we do it.
Mr. Mahat, yes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Right,
No.
no. So I do have a few things to say. One, we're streaming live, right? So people at home are hearing this too. And I know this is a room full of individuals that want to get a better grasp on mentorship and best practices, right? So I want to ask what advice you guys have for men, the men in the audience or the men at home that are wanting to be mentors. Now, yes, we are learning things through Mentor Stark and the best practices, but as individuals, you have to have some kind of wisdom. You have to have some kind of self-identity. You have to have some kind of stand-up character to be a mentor and to be some kind of influential person in somebody's life. And I don't know that we can learn that all from a book. So what advice do you have to anybody out there aspiring to be a mentor or any kind of power position that you are?
Well, if Nike is watching, I hope they can cut me a little check, because all I'm going to say is just do it. Because I waited. When I came out of college and I had an opportunity to try out for an NFL team, I thought at that time, I said, you know what? When I make $1 million, I'm going to open up my own center. And I'm going to help young kids to be the best they can be. And then what happened was that I didn't make it. The Browns cut me. They always cut their best players. So that's how.
Sound like the
that's what it
Browns.
sounded like the Browns.
Browns.
That is a true Cleveland Browns.
Right.
But at the same time, when not making that, I felt like my dream was deferred. And as I went through life, moving through my occupation, I realized I didn't have to have $1 million contract to do what I do. And that's the thing too that you have to understand. It doesn't take a lot of money. All it takes is your time. Because I don't make any money off of my organization. Nobody gets paid, well, except for my secretary, because she got to hold me down. She gets a little something.
She get a couple dollars.
She get a couple dollars.
$2, $3, okay.
Yeah, but everything that comes in goes right back to these kids. But you got to go out there, and it's almost like being with at the end of the highway with a sign, and I'm out here hustling and for the kids. And it's been 10 years, and I've been truly blessed doing it. So my thing is just do it. Like, don't sit around, because I can tell you right now, I believe it was 2016, my daughter was actually shot in a drive-by. And I remember my anger when we talk about emotions and how you deal with them. I remember I was just like, man, I remember as a father, I felt that anger. But then if I flipped over to the other side and I was like, man, that's a kid I probably could have helped. if I say this kid just had a mentor in his life, maybe he doesn't pull that trigger in a crowd of people. So if you're sitting at home and you're not doing anything, then you're not part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. So you're part of the problem. So get up, come out and help somebody. We have so many different amazing organizations in here that you can volunteer and help. All you got to do is just make contact with somebody, and I'm sure they'll welcome you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You know, the question originally was coined black men. I'm going to speak to that. We are in an environment in America where oftentimes James Baldwin said, to be a black man in America is to be in a constant state of rage. We don't want to not have that conversation because they're cussing us out in the classrooms, okay? Well, why are they cursing us out in the classrooms and the hallways? And why do we have the most insidious, horrible statistics with regard to African-American male life, African-American divorce rates, prison incarceration rates, spec ed certification or designation? This is a result of the impact. And if you have the same condition from New York City to Los Angeles, and the same condition from Houston to Chicago, it's systematic. So now, when we're dealing with young black men, and then you can take the same principle that I'm going to share and apply it to anybody. If you study culturally responsive education or teaching, you have to respond to the pull. I know it's a bad word, but I don't care about the perception of the word. I'm dealing with the principle. Any student that we experience, they have a multiple amount of layers, socioeconomic layers, cultural layers, gender identity, all kind of things. You have to unpack and allow them to explore those layers from even a trauma standpoint, right? And when they get an opportunity to do that, then you get an opportunity to practice your ability to love. Is your love strong enough? Do you have enough patience to endure the difficulties that it come with serving? And so if I could give you one cliche, the only clean water is running water. If you're not moving, then you can't drop sediments in your heart, dirt in your heart, impatience in your heart, anger in your heart, fear in your heart, judgmentalism in your heart, so that you don't react with a personal reaction to what young people bring to the table, because it has very little to do with you. It might feel personal because you're viewing them through your valence of pain. And so I'm so irritated at times with adults because they just give up on young people. They just blast young people. They just blaze young people. And I hate that. I don't dislike it, I hate it. That's one of the reasons why I left Canton McKinley High School. No disrespect to all of the great educators, because there are many, from kindergarten all the way up to high school, my peers. However, when people like Adrian Allison were teaching us about social justice, they really didn't want to hear it. Got to tell the truth. When he was talking about this CRT that I'm talking about, there are many professionals who didn't want to hear it because it's an uncomfortable conversation. But it's not blaming any teacher in the classroom, right? But what it is giving us a chance to rise above the damage and the condition. So that's the advice I give. Let the waters run. We'll become better as we go. I know that I'm a much more patient man than I was 10 years ago. I'm a more humble man than I was 15 years ago. I'm more kind, but I also protect my boundaries in myself now. Don't let you get up and hurt me. But what I'm not going to do is I'm just going to remove myself from situations and serve you with a long-handled spoon if I can. And when you allow me to come close, when we are allowed to engage in the exchange of humanity, then we can do that. So if you just keep going, you're going to learn how to love better. You're going to learn how to serve better. So therefore, it's not what you're doing for them, it's what you're doing for you. You become maybe what you were born to be. Put yourself in a position to impact the culture and really to impact those who really need your love.
Ladies and gentlemen, another hand for Mr. Samuel Muhammad and Mr. Lamar Sharp. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. We have a few more speakers. We want to thank you guys for your patience and thank you for your participation. I know sometimes you got to stretch. Anybody need to Like move? Okay, good. That's all you get. All right, we're going to keep it moving. I'm sorry. Okay, that's what we got. All right, we're going to keep it moving for the sake of time. We want to welcome to the stage Mr. Jamar Fleming. Mr. Jamar Fleming is coming to us. Let's give him a hand from Men of Tomorrow, from the Men of Tomorrow program. We're going to welcome him into the stage, and we're going to talk to him for just a minute. We're going to talk today. We're talking a little bit. How are you today, sir? How are you today? You don't get a microphone because we have a microphone shortage, apparently, here at Canton McKinley, at the Timken Commons campus. We have a microphone shortage. So we're talking today about challenging growth, right? We're talking about helping kids develop social emotional learning skills, and you guys have some information about that in your folders, so make sure you check those folders. So we want to hear from you about, can you explain how your program helps kids with this in the programs that you serve?
Well, first of all, our program is Men of Tomorrow. It's been running about 10 years now, but we also have Women of Tomorrow too now, which has been up for about 2 years.
Okay.
We serve kids who are at risk, some dealing with the court system, problems at school, et cetera, et cetera. And we take basically a real personal involvement with those kids. Like, we try to get involved in every aspect of their life. So it's school, it's home, it's extracurricular activities, et cetera. We also provide for some of the kids who we know they don't always get a fair shake when it comes to court and different things. We also provide legal representation. And one of the most powerful stories we have, I know Lori knows a little bit about it, is we was able to get one kid who was being charged as an adult, very little skinny kid, about 16 years old. And by the work of some of the lawyers that we work with, we got him bonded back over to the juvenile system. And then he got access to going to a place, and he was able to turn his life around. He graduated high school, now he's in college, and he's doing awesome things. And so it's like some things like that we get to do. With the social emotional learning, some of the things that we do with that is basically we try to put kids in a situation where we talk about, like, you have to think about what you're going to do before you do it and put yourself in that situation. So a lot of times what we do is a lot of like role play stuff. So we talk about different situations that might pop up at home, different situations that might pop up at school, and we role play those things. So I might say, hey, for instance, if this guy comes and do X, Y, Z to you, what is going to be your response?
You punch him.
Right, so they might say that, right?
No, that's what I was saying.
right.
Okay, hold on, no, okay. I didn't know, okay.
So you say that, and we say, so okay, what are the consequences to that? Like, what are some different things that could happen? And we give them scenarios of, like, okay, if this happens, if you do punch him, what if you charged with assault? What if this happens? What if you mess up this? And over time, they begin to think about different things that they could do differently. Also, experiences that they had that they know happened negative because of things that they did, and they learn those things. And so we just talk to them, have an open environment where we can talk about emotions, dealing with those emotions, and different things that they're dealing with.
I love that. So your program works with not only young people, but also their families. So what do you feel we need to be doing as family members and community members to not only teach healthy social emotional skills to our young people, but also to model them?
I think one of the biggest things is you got to be real. Sometimes kids are like, you're not real. So a lot of times I deal with adults, I say, you remember when you was a kid. So like, you didn't have it all together. You wasn't perfect. You didn't do everything right. So like, some of those stories that you have actually will help your kid. I remember this one young lady, she was like, my mom perpetuated this perfect life because she was in church and different things. So she never knew her mom struggled with anything. And so it made her feel like something was wrong with her because she was having struggles that seemed like, well, my mom, she's an adult, she never had these, like, this doesn't seem right. And so a lot of times what I say is be real, share those experiences with them that you have, and also in your day-to-day life, your example. One of the biggest things I tell the kids, I say, what I'm teaching you in class right now, I'm still dealing with, you know? So how I treat people, how I respond to things, different things. I think in everyday life, we all deal with those. So when they see us and how we respond to different things, how we respond to frustration, how we respond if something don't go at work, don't go right, they take all of that in. So if you coming home talking about, man, I just boss, blah, 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 you saying this, you're like, well, my teacher, I feel the same way, you know what I mean? So it's those things that you can teach them by modeling. also sharing with them some of the experiences that you've had and the things that you've been through as well.
Man, I love that. And so it's all about being relatable. I've been a coach, I've been a teacher, and I'm a mother. And I think the biggest thing for me right now with my son, I apologize to him. I apologize to him maybe if I've overreacted for something, or maybe I misheard him, or just didn't give him a chance to really explain himself. I apologize to my baby just because I know I'm not perfect and I'm still working on things that as a woman that I'm working, just working on stuff. So being slower to that and apologizing to my baby. So Jamar, thank you so much for coming up here and sharing your thoughts. You guys, make sure you guys go out and check out, Men of Tomorrow, and then Women of Tomorrow now. Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, next up, we're going to be talking about sharing power. Patrick Gerber and Tom Todd and Terrence Jones will come up and talk to us a little bit about sharing power and what that looks like.
We didn't have that when I was a kid.
Sharing power?
No, my mom said, I'm in charge, and sit down.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. That's all.
All right. That's how you do it. Welcome to the stage, gentlemen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, sharing power. We need to talk about this because this is different. I don't know. When I was a kid, there was no sharing power. It was do what I say. Don't touch nothing. Don't look at nothing. Why are we going in here then, Mom? Why are we in the toy store? Don't do nothing. Don't look at nothing. Don't touch nothing. And this is not for you. So we're talking about sharing power. All right. All right, so Pat, all right, can you explain what you do at Tom Todd and how you are very intentionally using research in engaging young voices in changing our community?
Yeah, so Tom Todd Ideas is where I work. It stands for Tomorrow's Ideas Today, although every middle schooler in the county thinks my name is Tom. It's not, it's Pat. So we work only with middle schoolers. We see it as a vulnerable population that doesn't get enough services. It's that critical age where you're still a little kid a little bit, but we're going into adulthood and we need those really vital mentors in our lives. And that's why Tom Todd's all about middle schoolers. We have classes, clubs, camps, and after-school clubs. And what we do is we want to engage youth voice on a community level. So a lot of times our youth have a voice in their classrooms, they have a voice in their school, but we want to put their voice on stage with our mayor, with our city council, with our business people. And what we do is design projects where they get to have that voice and realize that they do have the power to make change today. They don't have to wait for tomorrow.
I love that. So do you see a shift in young people when they realize that their voice is actually being listened to and they're being heard? What do you see with young people in that case?
Yeah, so behind me here, this fancy thing is called Heart's Ladder. This is a very cool resource, and it's a challenge to all of us who are doing mentoring work, which I assume everyone in here has some kids in their lives that they're looking out for. So in all of this youth voice work, when we engage voice and choice, just to narrow it down, when our kids know that they're listening, we're really listening to what they have to say, and they have choice in what's about to happen with us and what we're going to do on any level, from an individual moment in a classroom when a kid's got his hood down and he's having a tough day, to designing a whole program or curriculum or anything on the community level where we're saying we want to hear from our kids. When they know we're listening and they have choice, they come alive. They become better problem solvers because they know that they can engage in that with us. They grow skills and they grow their trust with the people that they're with.
I love that. Sports fans, when a player is no longer under contract, we call it free agency, right? Players go into free agency and they can choose what team they go to. As children and as adults, we have free agency. We have the agency to choose. And when young people feel their voice is being heard, that's called agency. And we all want that. Don't you like it? You said when you were kids, anybody else say, I can't wait till I'm grown because I'm going to make some choices. Because I'm going to have the agency, is what you were saying. You didn't know that. I'm going to have the agency to do what I want to do, and they want the agency to know that their voice is being heard. So what recommendations do you have for other people who work with youth, either informally or formally, that could help us all benefit from the voices of youth?
Yeah, I would challenge all of us to, on a big structural level, we have a platform to hand to youth. We have something. It might be your kitchen. It might be your classroom. It might be your after school time with them, might be your soccer team. I'm a soccer coach. We have a space where we can hand them decision-making power. And what we need to look for are those spaces. And then we need to make sure that we're not doing it on a tokenism level. We're not doing it on a decoration level, that we're really saying, hey, this is an opportunity we have to have this moment. What do you think? So a lot of times we tell kids, hey, here's what we're doing. So I would challenge us all not to say, well, here's what we're doing, but here's what we can do. Here's some options. Here's why we can do those options. And then if you really get really great at it, you start a little bit ahead of time and you say, how can we blank? How can we make our city better? How can we make this math lesson better? How can we make sure when we're in the hallways, we're treating people with respect? How can we do that? And let them engage in the conversation with you. A lot of times we assume what kids want, and we think we know. And I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 30 years, from a teacher to a coach to here at Tom Todd as a mental health counselor, and I was wrong a lot because I wasn't actually listening. And I didn't know that all behavior is communication. Kids are not going to come to you and say, here's my 5-page plan, although if they work with me, maybe they will, hopefully. But most of the time, they're going to come to you and say, this sucks. I don't like this. Right? That's communication. That's a moment to engage with their voice, give them some choice, see how we can work with them through those moments.
I'm loving all of this. Now, Mr. Terrence, when I seen the question, I said, wow, this is a very long question, but it makes sense for such a powerful Mr. Terrence Jones. Now, the speakers that have all come up, I know Lamar, I know Mr. Muhammad, but I knew Mr. Terrence when I was in high school, when I was a kid, and I think there might be some other people. Yeah, there's some people in here that can relate to that. So, Mr. Terrence, you have been mentoring young people and have been involved with families in this community for decades, with your nonprofit, Simply Youth, and also through your work with the schools. When you reflect on this idea about empowering the youth voice and some of the other concepts we've discussed tonight about how to make this more of a relationship-rich community for our young people, what do you think we need to be doing within our families and also as a community?
So to make it very short, the key word is exactly what you guys are saying. The key word is empower. And if you take that word empower and break it down, the word is power. We need to let our families and our students and the kids know they have the power. The power lies in their hands. And if we can do everything that we possibly can to make them aware that they have the power, I think that right there puts them already ahead of the game. And so what I mean by that is so many times whenever parents, particularly in low and moderate income households, they go into somewhere, a school, they go in somewhere, there's always like they are less than, or that they're coming asking, or that the fact that, you know, can we do this? And instead of the fact that they're going in with the tone of, I am the parent, this is what I'm expecting, where can I get the support to do, where are the resources so that my child can have, and the list goes on. And so you go in with that affirming mindset that the power lies with me. I think that that energy will connect with your child. I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather ran the show. Well, my grandmother really did. But the point is, I knew who had the power. And as I grew older, I took on that same mindset as well. But the more important thing with families, I will say also as well, is don't have a laser focus. So many times if you see a kid, oh, my kid is kind of tall, I'm gonna put them in basketball. Oh, you know what, she danced, she did good in that TikTok, I'm gonna put her in dance. Learn to be able to do something where you diversify them into everything. So if they're talking back, put them in speech and debate. If there's somebody who in turn that is, you know, running fast, you know, put them in track. So don't let anybody limit you with your child and have the laser focus saying, oh, he's just gonna be a football player. She's just going to be a dancer. Put them in speech and debate. Put them in She Elevate so they can learn how to become a CEO. Put them in different things so that now they have a very, very diverse background. And that was one of my strengths. My grandmother put me in everything, and it helped me. So that diversified childhood, I think, was help them. And putting them in those safe places will do just what that, and that is empower them to be more, to do more, and to think bigger and better. That's it, and that's all. It's a very simple process.
And this is the voice we plan to end on. Terrence, thank you so much for sharing that. Pat, thank you so much for being here. To our panelists, to everybody who was here this evening, we want to thank you guys. It is 7:30. Lori, there is a QR code here that Lori is pointing at. They're supposed to scan this. We want to keep talking about this. You hear I'm taking instructions right now? you want to scan this QR code. Please zoom in on this with your phone, with your cameras. And that is going to allow you to give us some valuable feedback that will allow us to continue this. Also, make sure you guys check out Lucas Live News tomorrow morning. We have Lucas Live News at Lucas Live Media, Friday mornings, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Lucas Live Media on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to be talking about this some more on our news show tomorrow morning, and we're going to keep this conversation going. We're going to have some more sessions like this that may be led by some of the people in this very room, and we want to thank you all. Anything, Lori, you want to say to close? Yeah. Let's give it up for Lori.
I mean, just by a quick show of hands, how many people felt that this was helpful tonight? How many people will actually take some information that they learned? I'm so grateful to the people that showed up here tonight. Literally, it was a phone call, right, 2 weeks ago to said, we're trying to put this together. I want you to come and share what you've been experiencing, because I've been seeing it here for years. So I'm so, grateful to you all for coming out here. So grateful to Lucas Live. Pinnacle Press for, those materials that you have. I hope you keep them and use them, because they did a beautiful job printing them, and it's really, really powerful stuff. So hopefully you can keep going. So thanks. Yes, they are all online resources, and we can post them tomorrow on your show as well. So thanks again. Appreciate it, and safe travels home.